Dear Africa.
Hey YouTube, welcome to Manifest Africa. I am packing up. I am moving to another Airbnb rental room. I'm not able to get on the internet this morning. The house where I'm staying, I'm unsure what's going on with their internet. However, I'm checking in because I want to talk about the situation concerning why I'm here to do business. Yesterday was my employees' first day to get paid, actually. So mostly people pay by the month here, and there's really no such thing as part-time work, a part-time day. They work 9 hours a day, hour lunch, two 15-minute breaks. And this is, I'm going to explain to you the reason why. This probably could be a video for my other channel for CBI, but I'm not doing CBI today. So I have paid my employees, so they got their monthly salary. I took their taxes out. I haven't paid their taxes yet. They complain because they don't like to pay taxes, which who does like to pay taxes? The thing about it is, at least in this country, their president makes sure that their tax money, they do benefit a lot of different things, for their tax money. They have their health insurance, they have the women have like a maternity leave. He offers free education if you get good grades, all through their life. They can even go to the college, as I've stated before, and get a stipend the whole time they're in college. He builds the infrastructure. It's growing fast here. However, it is a young country, very young country. So my employees, and I kind of thought to myself, I was like, no, they're not going to do that. I kind of thought, how young adults, irresponsible, when they get a little bit of money, they think it's a lot of money. They think they're rich. They think they're rich. They think it's going to last forever. Let's just forget all of our responsibilities and party. And I had 2 new employees start this morning, and neither of the directors, the supervisors, came to work today. Actually, one of them actually quit yesterday, and he didn't give 2-week notice. He didn't finish his project, basically what I had hired him for. He didn't want to pay taxes. And he also was using company time to scroll the internet, to be on YouTube, and to do work for other people. They were using my company paid for software. Well, the guy was. So it is just people that come here, Black Americans in my age group or older, that come here. You need to realize that, I think I read that the population, I think only 1% of people here are between the age of, I think it was 45 to 50, maybe 2% was 40 to 45. And when you're looking at a whole entire country, basically young adults that are still in their party years, that's pretty much, their priority. And so a lot of opening a business over here or doing any dealings over here, you're either dealing with these young adults that aren't necessarily ready to mature yet. A lot of the women here, they don't even get married or have children until their late 30s. And so that means that the guys, aren't doing that either. So they don't really have families necessarily at a young age. They're in party mode, basically. I mean, at night, the bars are usually packed. The streets are usually packed at nighttime. And then you have the adults that are 40, 45, and most of them are very strict on their own people. And it's like, because as in an employer role here or a business owner role here, you're almost having to act as a parent and a grandparent, because there's no older people. There's no older people with the wisdom of older aunts, older uncles, you know, elder grandparents, older parents. So with the genocide being, I believe in 1993, 94, I believe that was like my oldest employees are 28 years old. So I think they were born like 2 years after the genocide. Most of the adults, unfortunately, from what I've heard, don't quote me, and I don't really talk about the genocide and all of that, because I don't feel qualified really to give my opinion on it. So I really don't get into that. I don't talk about it or none of that. I'm not qualified. I'm not from here. I could never understand it. All I can know is some of the history, but we know how history is really kind of determined by, who wrote it. So I don't really get into that. But what I have noticed is, like, this is 2023, mine is 1993, 30 years old. So the people that you'll be dealing with that were born after the genocide and whose parents survived, or maybe one parent was didn't survive and then they moved out the country, and then a lot of them come back. So those are kind of like the older ones. So the older population here in Rwanda, the business owners and the executives and people like that, a lot of them are returnees whose parents had the money or the wherewithal for them to escape the genocide and go to other countries. So those will be your 40-year-olds, your 40-year-olds, your 45-year-olds here. The ones that have come back, that are able to, that wanted to come back, to help build their country. So these are just observations that I'm making, as I'm here. And it could change, it could change as I'm here longer. But just from what I noticed, these young adults, they need direction. They need direction, and they need hands-on training. They get education, but they don't get what we would call in the States the practical training, like on the equipment, or the practical training on the job training. It's a growing economy. It's getting very urbanized, and everything over here is based on US dollars. So the majority of the population, which are the young adults, which would be under 30, that were born after the genocide or were able to survive the genocide, they cannot afford, they can't live in US dollars. They can't live in US dollars. They can't afford to go out and participate in society in US dollars. And their pay, their salary is not in US dollars. However, everything growing here, all the urbanization is based on US dollars. And I think that as highly intelligent that the president is, and the things that he's done, and the plans that he has to do, it's like he's not factoring in how these few older people are making his country's turnover rate. The country's spinning, and it's growing slower. It's growing like this instead of it growing like this, if you can understand what I'm saying. And the reason is because the few adults that have started building, they have turned Rwanda's economy into a US dollar economy. So all of your leases for businesses, all of your houses you want to get built, all of your retail places that you want to get built, all of your land that you want to buy, all of these things, the construction, the engineers, all of this is based on US dollars. And they're spending, and the turnover rate is not it's a high turnover rate. So basically, the ones that were able to, fortunate enough for their family to take them as children and leave the country during the genocide, that are coming back now, they have these idea of an economy of the country that they grew up in. And they still live over there. They only come back here normally, and I'm not saying everybody, but the majority of them, the ones that I have been meeting, they come back here to do business, either during the summers when their kids are out of school, because they put their kids in school over there pretty much, maybe during the holidays. So they need that kind of money for business over here to sustain their lifestyle over in other countries. And that's why, and then the US dollar is the world currency right now. So this is why the turnover rate in Rwanda is so high. I met with a lady yesterday, wonderful lady, and people can ask for whatever they want for rent or for lease or to buy their property. But she's basing her business lease on US dollars. You cannot come into an economy of Rwanda francs and base your business on getting US dollars. It does not make sense. You know, your rate of return is going to be triple the time, because you're going to be trying to only open a business to cater to expats, to cater to tourists. You know what I'm saying? Who are opening good, viable, nice businesses, catering to the Rwandas, to the everyday working class, people that work at the bank, people that work in the government offices, people that drive the buses. Who is over here opening businesses to cater to the people of this country? And the reason why they can't is because of the few older people that, in their minds, even their own country's money doesn't have value, because they don't even want it. They don't want it. They want, everything is based on US dollars. Everything. Everything. You cannot open a business starting out with rent, paying $4,000 US dollars a month, and you can't even cater the average working class Rwandan that works in the bank, just a regular position in the bank, because you know management isn't that many people. So a regular position in the bank, they're making 250,000 to 300,000 francs a month. Per month. That is $250 to $300 US per month. Now, if you open any type of place here and you ask a regular working Rwandan to like come into your restaurant and spend 25,000 francs, $25 on a meal, and they only make 250,000 francs to 300,000 francs, that don't even calculate up. That doesn't even calculate up. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't people here with money. Like I said, those people that maintain a home, they maintain a family, probably one spouse is still in another country, like Belgium, France, London, the United States, something like that. The other spouse is working, they're taking care of their kids there, and then they come over here to do business, and they're asking for US dollars. I cannot wrap my mind around it. And so as much of a genius as the president is, and all of the hard work that he's done, all of the accomplishments that he's made, someone did not factor in that this is not a US economy. Our economy is not based off of US dollars. Our general economy for the general society is based off of francs. You know, it needs to be, I mean, you can't say what people ask, you know, for their property, but this is a small country. And I know it happens in the States where you have vacancy rates, but this is a small country. You go into these buildings and entire floors are empty or vacant. You know, the people that are able to rent a place because they're dealing with the general population here in Rwanda francs, they're not making anything, because even for them to get a nicer place, they have to pay basically in US dollars. It's not right. It's not right. And this country cannot grow with a high turnover rate like that. And also, it turns off investors that do come over here. You know, where you know, the first year you be at a loss. The second year you want to try to break even. The third year you need to be trying to make a profit. By the fourth year, if you're not making a profit from the third to the fourth year, it's time to go into your exit plan. How am I going to exit this business and get some of my money and try to break even? The turnover rate is so high. And this is the reason why there needs to be some sort of controls concerning renting, concerning building, concerning how much you can go up on the cost, what percentage that you can go up on the cost for these items every year. Because people, I'm telling you, very few, they're not necessarily doing like a market analysis or anything like that. They're just hearing rumors. Oh, such and such got $100,000 US dollars for 1 hectare, which is 2.47 acres. And then they're thinking in their head, oh, I'm gonna get me 100,000. It could just be a rumor. You know what I'm saying? Somebody in the village could have just lied because they didn't want somebody to know their business. You know, and they don't really have a way to gauge what they're asking for. You know, how can you ask for almost $300,000 US dollars for 5 hectares when there's no roads there yet? There's no infrastructure. There's no hospitals, there's really no schools, there's no restaurants, there's no retail places, there is nothing around there. And then even in the 2050 plan, that plan might not even reach to their particular property. And then this is 2023. So you're pricing your land off of a 2050 plan? which means that things should be completed by 2050. So you're looking at 10 to 15 years, 20 years before your area is even developed enough to get a rate of return on what you're asking for. And a lot of people's heads and minds are filled with these dreams, and it's just like they're steadily suffering and struggling and just waiting on this fantasy that some rumor broke out that somebody put in their head. Just 2 years ago when I was here, the hectares were going for 2.5 million, which was 2,500 US dollars. In February of 2021. This is just the end of February 2023. In 2 years, with no development, no new roads, no the unfortunately, because of COVID, the completion of the new airport out in Bugesera. I'm talking about the area of Bugesera. With the new completion of the airport out, it's not going to be done probably till about the end of 2025 if they're able to stay on schedule and everything goes as planned. So it's 2023. There's really nothing out there. And people are asking for basically 40, 50, 70,000 a hectare, which divided by two, it's just crazy. You're looking at 20,000 US per hectare. And then they're basing that on the new airport. So, but what they don't understand is how long is it going to take for all of that infrastructure to be built up to where you have the built-in clientele like you do in Kigali. And even in Kigali, I go to the nice restaurants normally for lunchtime. I'm not necessarily a night person. Like I said, the bars, because it's a young country, they're packed at night, the bars. But the restaurants, like when you start looking at just a regular lunch crowd, a regular after work dinner crowd, very few restaurants, very, very few, and I'm talking about the nicest of the nicest ones, have a crowd. Very, very few. Very few of the places that you go to for entertainment, there's no one in there. And the reason why is because they have to, because of the lease or the rent that they're paying, or because of the cost of how much they built for, they have to base their return and they have to charge people in US dollars. And this is not a US dollar economy. This is a Rwanda franc economy. It's not right. I don't think it's right. That the regular Rwandans, the everyday working class, they can't really participate in the urbanization of the country because it's based on US dollars. And then you have to deal with these young adults. Like I said, only one of them came to work today because they got their monthly salary. Only one of them came to work today. One of them quit. The other two, one of them won't answer the phone. The other one, at least he tried to say he had an eye doctor's appointment. You should have known you had an eye doctor's appointment, a week or two ago. And so a lot of opening a business here is actually hands-on. You have to train them, and then you also damn near have to raise them and give them life advice. I had to tell them today, I sent it in the group message, That's what irresponsible adults do. This is what children do. This is what stupid people do. They get their first check and they quit a job and they don't have another job. Irresponsible adults, they get their first check and they party, party, party and spend their money and they think they're rich, and then they don't come to work on time, and they don't do their job. They're just thinking that they got all this money. But this is what young adults do that don't have older, wiser people in their society with experience to teach them about simple things like that in life. It's a lot. So you should, but I'm not discounting that the country's growing. I'm not discounting the efficiency of the government. I'm definitely not discounting the president. I mean, I think he's some kind of genius, to be quite honest with you. I think he's a genius. Either that or he's surrounded himself with geniuses. But there's just some things that the best plans just can't plan for. Like office politics. Like he sends everybody that's capable and able to the university and gives them money and allows them to stay at the university until they graduate. Everybody's guaranteed an internship after they graduate. So what he does is he sends them to internships in government offices. They don't get paid for the internships, which is fine. They're getting paid with experience. And what he's doing is that way he is trying to, first of all, you get a lot of free labor. Secondly, you're picking the cream of the crop to work for these government agencies through this internship, and you're picking the best of the best. He's trying to pick the best of the best. However, they did not account for office politics. A lot of these young adults understand, even though I might be the smartest, even though I might be the best, even though I might come to work on time, even though I might make the best contributions during my internship, if I don't know somebody's family that's in the management there, if my family isn't really anything, they're not going to get picked to continue to work for that government agency. But that is what the president and what the government, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to pick the cream of the crop to work for the government. But they did not calculate office politics and who you know. They didn't calculate that. So they're not always getting the best of the best to work for the government, because 8 times out of 10, people are waiting on their family members, their tribe members, their village members, someone else that they know to come through there so that they can give them the job. And they might not necessarily be the cream of the crop that the government's looking for to hire. So it's just little things like that that they don't bank on. And then there's things, like I said, things about people overcharging or people running your country in a currency that's not native to this country. This country is not built on US dollars. Well, it is now. It's basically built on US dollars now, but the issue is you're not going to make a return. Yeah, the big places can, the Marriott, the Radisson, 4 Points, some of the larger places, because those are like the first places that tourists or expats, are going to gravitate to. But I'm talking about everyday community, everyday currency transactions. It's just not right. So I'm just venting today. I'm frustrated. I'm really disappointed in my group members, because I thought that they were more responsible than that. But I guess it's my fault because the oldest two were 28 years old. 28 years old, and this is, I mean, this is the situation in the country. It's the situation. So you have to be prepared to raise them, to give them wisdom, and to train them when you come to this country. And unfortunately, I see a lot of the older ones, the few, they they just kind of tell them what to do and they don't really try to nurture them. And it's in the nurturing that this economy and this country is going to quit going up like this, and it's going to skyrocket. So thank you for checking in with me on Manifest Africa. And then as I'm packing, I'm thinking maybe maybe that's how they want the economy over here to be based off of US dollars. I'm not an economist. I'm not anything like that. These are my basic, simple observations that I'm making, and that as I'm talking to landowners and business owners around here, that they all want US dollars for payment, and they all base, what they charge on US dollars. I mean, I guess some people, I guess some countries want it like that. And then that way, if they do that, then basically, uh, it's like it leaves you a whole lot of super cheap labor for the elite, of the country. It's like it makes the country a two-tier system, like no middle class, because the middle class, the everyday working people, like in the office building, just a restaurant manager or whatever, or even a small business owner here that owns the little markets or the beauty salons, like they can't participate in the urbanization of their country. They can't participate. So it's just the expats coming in, the tourists, the rich people. Those are pretty much, I don't think that that's how the president envisions this country, because he's building so much infrastructure and schools and hospitals and everything for the regular people. So I don't think that, and they have insurance. So I don't think that that's how he intends things to be. But this from my observation, this is what it is. This is what it is. I just don't know who opens a business in a country and they base their projections and their budget off another country's currency. And maybe somebody can school me in the comments or something like that. Maybe somebody can school me maybe that's how it is, all over the world. Like all of the cities are basically for the rich, or I don't know, because it's weird. It's really weird to me how all of these people base you opening a business, you building, they base it off of US dollars. It's just so weird to me. So maybe somebody can school me. I'm self-taught. I brought myself, by my bootstraps, as they say in the US. So maybe it's, I don't know. I'm just making a simple observation. But maybe, it's something I don't know about. That maybe that's how it is everywhere. I don't know. But all I know is somebody that works a regular job at a bank or an insurance company and they're making 250 or 300,000 Rwanda francs a month, there's no way that they're going to do any type of entertainment during that month that costs 25,000 francs. Their rent. I mean, I can't see it, so, this is more of a, even the couple I stay with, the Indian couple, she even told me she has a restaurant. And I think it's been open 5 years, is what she told me. And she even told me, she said, I don't make a profit. She was like, I don't think she was lying either. She was like, my husband works for the government. So he has a good time, and it's something that she does here to pass the time while she's here with them. She says she don't make a profit. I didn't ask her, does she own her building? Did she build it? Or anything like that. But she told me that sometimes her husband even has to put money into the restaurant. So, and she even said herself, like, the locals here, they don't have money to eat out. Like, they don't have money. So, and then there's so many restaurants. You can't open all these restaurants based on expat money or tourist money, and that's your only income. That's why the turnover rate is so high. Even talked to someone with another building they're renting out, and they were trying to tell me that the turnover rate was because the expats were leaving, and that's why in 10 years they had four different people, because the expat had to leave. Their contract was, which is an average of a 2-year contract, and so they just gave the business to somebody else. But like I was trying to explain to them, the thing about that is why I still understand that you're overcharging, is because your turnover rate is too high. Even if an expat had to leave and they had to leave their business, and the next person that came, it seems like if that business was making a profit and was viable, they would have just bought that business and kept that business running. Why change it to a whole another kind of concept? You're changing it to a whole new concept because that business isn't working and it's not making a profit. So it could have been a situation to where whoever was over here, the expat on a contract, they really weren't making a profit. It was really something, maybe just like the Indian couple here. Maybe it was just something for the wife or the husband to do to pass their time while they're here. And then people don't just keep selling their businesses, regardless of what country it's in, just because I'm leaving. If it's making a profit and if it's able to run itself smoothly, then why would you not keep that money? Especially when it's based on US dollars, whatever country you're from. Why wouldn't you keep that money? Why would you just automatically, why in 10 years has this business changed so many times? The reason is because the lease is too high. They're not making a profit. They're probably coming out of their pockets, and it's just something to do. Or your clientele is just the super rich, the elite, trust fund babies, people that have money. They just want to be here and have something to do. Their parents are paying it or their family's paying it. They really don't care. They really don't care about their rate of return on their investment. But regular investors, that's the bottom line, is the rate of return. That's the bottom line, what they're looking for. They're looking at return on their investment, and they're looking at a time frame. They're not looking at just something to do, so I just, what's really going on in Rwanda, as my tagline for CBI says, these will be my honest opinions. And hopefully someone in the comment section to maybe school me or check me, on my thinking, because do y'all think that it's viable to open a business in another country based on another country's currency and base your income and your profit on another country's currency, and even another country's business, getting business from other countries? I don't know how sustainable that is, but let me know. Let me know in the comment section.
She came onto the country shores as if she were a 100-year storm. Most would heed the warning in time, take shelter, before even catching the enticing smell of the beautiful coming rain. A few godlike men, yet untamed by Mother Nature, would embrace the strong, somehow comforting change of winds, allow themselves to take up the treasures revealed, left behind her impassioned path, knowing her omnipresence is in the same nature of themselves, which called unto the storm.